Although, folks, it's that time just a couple of seconds away. It's always a good night on Wednesdays because that usually means Peek Wilbur is with us. But will she be here tonight? You never know. She's always lurking somewhere. Our friend Rob Browne up in Kentucky, actually in Louisville, for the SEC Media Days, will be reporting in for us. And we got David Moulton back. What was that they call it? Sweet and sour? Stand by. The Buddy Martin Show is about to be on the air right now. Tell your friends and neighbors to come join.
It's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye!
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
This is my 6th year as a head coach. This is the 6th media day. Typically my wife Allie and I always finish up our vacation time and summer break with an anniversary trip, and we back that right up to media day. My mom or Allie's parents will keep Annie, Sammy, and Charlie, and this year was special. We celebrated 15 years together. So it's been a good break. I don't know how your break has been. I don't know that we ever stopped working. I hope you've enjoyed your break like we have. We're excited to be here in Nashville today as we kind of turn our focus to one of my favorite times of the year. What a blessing it is to be here representing the University of Florida. I've been blown away in my first year with this place, how much the people care. The people I've met, the University of Florida is a special place because it has impacted so many people. The experience, the memories, the relationships, the caliber of degree, the alumni network. We're approaching 500,000 living alumni at a prestigious place.
Just a little taster of what you heard today up there in SEC Media Days in Nashville. I think I said Kentucky earlier. I believe Nashville's in Tennessee still. And what can you tell from that? Nothing. But the topic tonight will be about what do we expect to hear from our coaches at SEC Media Days. Does it matter? And what does matter? Style? We'll get some thoughts on that. But right now, welcome back to the program. The rising star, who's just everybody wants to have Allie on their show. All right, I knew her when she wasn't a superstar yet, so I can say that. But good to have her back. And Peek Wilbur joins the program again. And Allie, so good to see you. How's it going?
It's going pretty well, buddy. I'm glad to be back with you.
Yeah, and glad to be with you. So you got a little glimpse there of Billy. We can't tell much. We have this propensity to want to evaluate and grade the coaches. I've done this a long time. I don't particularly want to do that. I don't know what we're looking for. We're looking for news. Not ever going to get news. These guys have perfected the art of saying nothing while talking, and that comes with it. They want to not make a headline, not have a hot take, get their message across, make sure they impress people, right? So just in that little glimpse right there, I'm not going to ask you to evaluate, but what did you see? Anything?
I think for the most part it is coach speak, but I think he did a good job of, highlighting the university as a whole, not just the football program, which, to be 100% fair, given that the state of the football program at this exact moment, that's probably good, right? We need to, can't stand on what the record was last year. You need to stand on the whole overall experience, which is honestly what we should be selling to recruits regardless, because the University of Florida is a world-class education. Opportunities abound in Gainesville compared to a lot of the other places in the SEC. And that's something we are proud of. We should be proud of. And I do think we should market. But, Billy Napier just has to be careful. I think when you're a Steve Spurrier or a Saban or, something like that, where you've proven yourself, you've earned something, you can make snarky comments. You can have funny quotes that free shoes you, and you can't spell citrus without UT and things like that. You're allowed to have that because you've earned that. Billy Napier has yet to earn anything in the SEC. So I appreciate flying under the radar and just, getting through it, essentially.
Very good point. Here's a couple of things you should know about, and I'm going to do a quick read on a commercial here if I can. Number one, none of those comments that were made by Steve Spurrier were ever made during the season or SEC media days. They were made in the off season, speaking to boosters group.
Sure.
That's the difference in the fan base. You try to get people stirred up during the spring. And the other thing is that we have come. I've been doing this a long time. I remember when the meetings were held at Silver Springs. And that was the precursor to the Skywriters Tour, which is the precursor to SEC Media Days. And I think, why do we care anymore? Well, here's why we care. It's midsummer. We get to talk football, SEC football and Gator football in the middle of the summer and have coaches and players. So it's kind of a jubilee in that regard. Let's be honest, how much news is going to come out of there anyway? There'll be a couple of funny lines and things and stories and questions, and mostly they talk about style. I mean, I heard more talk about Ricky Pearsall's look today, John Wick, than anything else I heard. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of red carpet in a way, but I don't know. Have you been before, and do you like watching it?
I have not been before, and I do enjoy watching it. I think that it's great exposure and life experience kind of for the players that go. I think it's interesting to hear, them talk about how things are going behind closed doors. It's a little bit of a peek inside because we don't hear a whole lot about what happens over the summer. So, I think that's important. I think we can always count on Saban to say something funny, Kirby to whine. I think that it's important. I get the point. These are the dog days of summer. We need a little bit of taste of football to just get us over the hump till the end of August. But anybody that expects anything to come out of it at this point, I don't really think that exists anymore. I think the media training that the players get and the coaches get kind of, for the most part, negates any chance we have of getting some, great line. I will say, did you see the quotes from Jason Marshall today?
I did see them, and we'll go over those in a minute. And I want to tell you the real story behind the so-called Steve Spurrier quote about what he said about Florida, Georgia. The real story, okay? It's not what has come out that way. So we'll tell you that. First, Allie Peek Wilbur, the goddess of is that a good word? God, I like goddess. Yeah, the goddess, a real peak of the Gators. Her podcast, terrific on YouTube. Be sure and tune it in. I want to tell you about our friends at Titan MRI. Titan MRI is worth a short drive to Gainesville. No insurance, no problem. You can pay with cash or card with same-day scheduling available. You start feeling better today because Titan MRI is North Central Florida's premier independent MRI facility. Come see why hundreds of patients are visiting our Gainesville location from Ocala, Marion County, and the villages. That's TitanMRI.com. So, Allie, you read the story about what allegedly Steve Spurrier said on his Facebook page whenever Kirby Smart, as I call him these days, Kirby Smartass, said to a writer, it's the Georgia-Florida game. Like, how dare you put Florida first, right? It's an old argument that goes back 100 years, and I always write Florida, Georgia for that reason. Always. But apparently I got the guy's name. He said something about it. And the next thing we know, we have this Facebook page, Steve Spurrier saying, well, everybody knows what the name is. If you'd have won 11 out of 12, it might be called the Georgia-Florida game, but it's the Florida-Georgia game, right? Did you see that?
I did see it, yes.
Okay, what was your immediate response?
I mean, I I chuckled. I don't, I mean, anything that I guess maybe is attributed to Steve Spurrier, maybe he didn't really say it, but like he just has such a dry sense of humor and he has such a comedic timing, I
Yeah.
feel like, with dry statements that it was totally believable. And I think Kirby gets himself in a tizzy over everything. So I enjoyed picturing that happening.
Yeah, well, it sounded like the old Steve Spurrier, but I knew better, but I knew it didn't. I don't think I've talked to him about this before. He's out of that game now. So it went live. Everybody quoted it. It's all around the country. So I happened to call him up. Guess what he said? I never said that. I said, it's on your Facebook page. He said, I got a Facebook page? I said, yeah, you do a Facebook page. He said, well, I don't know where it came from because that's BS. You know? I said, well, I'm just telling you what it says. Somebody posted it.
Yeah.
He got off the phone and he called somebody and found out it was one of his quote-unquote overzealous assistants, he said. Put it on there, and I'm sure he got a piece of his mind. And called me back and said, that wasn't me. I didn't say that. Tell people that I didn't say that. So I'm telling him he never said that. But you know what? I kind of wish he had said it.
I kind of wish he did too. The only part I feel like that is not Steve Spurrier-esque about that quote is that he's more self-deprecating than that. Like he's not a bragger. And so for him to say like, well, when you win, 11 out of 12 or whatever, like that would be referring to him doing such a great job on that. And that is not his personality. I think he'll joke on opponents and things like that, but he just doesn't come across as someone that brags on himself.
No, he does not. In fact, what he'll say, if you're talking, having a casual conversation, of which I have quite a few, he'll say, let me win 11 out of 12, like he doesn't know, He will never say, we beat him out. You're right. That's a telltale sign. But anyway, it also speaks to the fact that what has happened, and I'm not being critical of media days because I'm glad we've got it, and it certainly is a refreshing thing to have. But it's a reminder that maybe these coaches have gotten so slick at not saying anything, and have gotten away with it because Steve Spurrier wasn't there.
Right.
I'm sure they hated it. It's like going up against a stand-up comedian. Spurrier just wore them out for years, Sure. And so now they got it down to where they can say, okay, maybe say a little something controversial, move on, and spend the rest of the time, yada, yada, yada. My program was great and selling and whatever. And that's all right. It's become a hype fest. And I'm not saying it's not worthy, but it isn't the same thing. I guess I have to say, what do we want them to say now? There really isn't. What can you say, right?
Well, and that's true, and especially true in a situation like Billy Napier, because if he makes a statement similar to, let's say, the one we're going to discuss about Jason Marshall, then everybody's on him about that. If he says, hey, we weren't very good this last year, and I don't know how much we're going to improve, but we're going to work on it, people are going to say he's trying to set low expectations. Like there's no winning in there. I think he said some good things. One of your one of your followers made a comment where they said they liked that he said that they evaluated after year one. And I do think that's interesting. One of the things that I took mental note of is he was asked about handing over the reins, offensive play calling, or if that was something they're looking into. And he said that he's always evaluating it, but he likes to have his hands in there. And I think in an upcoming season where we're seeing some big names maybe pass the reins on as offensive coordinator, it is interesting that Billy's not choosing that route. Particularly, I just find it interesting. Billy has this massive army, right? He's got 3 people to get his cup of coffee. You're going to have 27 recruiters per player, but he is going to call the special teams plays. He's going to coach the quarterbacks. He's going to be the offensive play caller. And that's weird to me because it seems like he's wearing a lot of hats himself for somebody that has a staff the size that he does. And maybe it's going to work out. Maybe the play calling is going to be exceptional this year. The players are going to understand the system a little bit better. Maybe he's got some of his own guys in positions that make it better. But I did have questions about play calling last year. So I'm interested to see if he continues to evaluate and how that evolves over the season. And let's say the offense doesn't take a major step forward. I don't know that that's going to be the case, but let's just say that happens. Going into year 3, is he willing to then hand the reins over to an offensive coordinator?
Yeah, if he's still there. No, he'll be there. Those are all good points. You're right, and it's part of it. And he even said some of the plays we called on both sides in the spring game, talk about the spring game, which says with the play calling we did, you have a right to question it. So he knows what he's in for there. I've got a bunch of notes here on nothing epic that he touched on. I'm going to just throw out a couple of things in a minute here. But I want to get to you and the latest recruiting news. You've become a real recruiting guru and everybody wants to know what you think and where things are going, et cetera, et cetera. This has been a hot ticket for the last 3 or 4 weeks, my goodness. And they're asking you right here, ask Allie who she thinks will be the next pickup on the recruiting trail. Does she think we flipped that Ohio State wide receiver?
So I don't think that we flip Jeremiah Smith. I think that if something happens and there's any sort of coaching shakeup there, and Brian Hartline leaves, let's say, somehow gets the opportunity to make the jump to the NFL to, be a head coach somewhere, I think then there's a great chance we get him. I think if that happens, I don't expect that to happen until like right before signing day or maybe even on signing day. But I think if everything stays the same with Ohio State's coaching staff, I don't think that we get Jeremiah Smith. I do think Florida's getting another commitment very, very soon. So
for 84. Excuse me, I'm missing a few centuries. It's for 2024.
For 2024, I think Florida will get a commitment very soon. I don't want to ruin anybody's announcement or anything like that, but I do think in the very near future, Florida will get an announcement, and probably prior to the barbecue. But then I also think there's a possibility that they get another commitment or even maybe 2 commitments out of the barbecue. That's not a guarantee, but there is some rumblings that could potentially happen.
Yeah, I guess TJ was quite a surprise. Maybe you knew it, but I didn't see it coming. I know he had been here. I read that he was in here in January. They came in and really made up his mind during the June bloom, as we call it. So those things are working, I guess, huh?
So I had the video that I ran as soon as he announced recorded over 2 months ago, because we were told he was flipping, but I thought it would have happened by now. And the fact that it didn't happen, I started to think, okay, well, maybe he's changing his mind on that, because when we recorded it, it was this flip could happen at any time. You don't expect something to stay, saved and unposted for, 10 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it was. It was a very long period of time. I had no idea it was going to pop last night.
I noticed you just had to put the kids down hardly when it broke.
I mean, my phone was like blowing up. I was like, what is going on? But thankfully we did have that video recorded, so we were able to, push it out there. But I think that the timing of that caught everybody off guard. I don't think the flip necessarily did, but when it happened, definitely caught people off guard.
The only problem with recruiting, and I'm not a recruitnik, but I appreciate the people who are and the great things. And I was a big Laura McKeeman fan, as she was called. She cut her teeth here, and before she went to ESPN, became Laura Rutledge, and we at Gator Country. Then we did quite a bit of it, and I've just admired how you've navigated your way through all the BS and established your credibility with the parents and people, because the kind of person that you are, and your information is valid. You don't put out just BS hot takes to get like some people do, which we know we're talking about a lot of those. So I think that's the thing. Credibility is really important right now with people like yourself. In talking about what Billy said, I don't know if there was any one thing that struck you. Really, only not much. The only thing I remember is they asked him about the Florida-Georgia series and the game, the year 3 after and whatever. And he said, "I don't know. I've got enough lawn in front of me to mow right now." That was his quote. And he didn't want to entertain that one. Of course, he wouldn't. He talked about Mertz a little bit, and he's not going to say everything. And he talked about developing trust over a short period of time, how difficult that was. And I think the key, a lot of numbers he threw out there, 93% of our team was here in January. That was a pretty impressive number, now, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like you said, there's going to be a lot of coach speak. He doesn't want to make promises that he can't deliver on. He also doesn't want to make excuses for anything that happens. So that doesn't leave a whole lot of room to say a whole lot. His comments about Mertz were interesting, though, because he did talk about the evaluation process to arrive on him being the choice. And I think that if we look at just the players that he brought with him from Louisiana, they all panned out well in the SEC. And if I had told you prior to Napier's first season, hey, look, he's going to bring a handful of guys from the Ragin' Cajuns, and he's going to start them at Florida, you probably would have been like, I mean, that's a great way to lose games.
Yeah, I would have said, hold on here. This is not the Sun Belt, right? That's what we would have said, right?
That's what lots of people said, like, oh, Sun Belt Billy, look at this guy bringing all these players from the Ragin' Cajuns. That's never going to work in the SEC. And then we have guys who, like Osiris Torrance, who end up being All-Americans. You look at Monty Johnson. I mean, Florida's best players last year.
Every one of the best players came from Louisiana, without a doubt.
And I really think that that's a nod to the
I don't know where that came from. Did you do that, Dally? You got some kind of sound effects going on there? What is that? Wow, that's scary.
Effects. That's funny. But, so I think that then, okay, so let's give him a chance. Let's see how Mertz pans out. Let's see if Billy really did find a diamond in the rough here. And I did a deep dive on some of Mertz's stats at Wisconsin, watched some film on him and stuff. And I honestly think that his inconsistencies do in large part stem from the inconsistencies of Wisconsin as a whole. And I don't really think that they used a system that played to Mertz's strengths. And Mertz was a top 5 high school quarterback coming out in 2019. So, like, he was a huge pickup as a recruit. This is not some leftover player that just ended up on Wisconsin's roster. So, am I saying he's going to, be first team All SEC? Absolutely not. But I think that he is capable of being serviceable. And I think that's what Billy was telling us. Like, look, just trust me. All right. I did a lot of homework on this guy. Let's just see.
Yeah, that's kind of the message on here. And I think if you think about what he's asking him to do, he's not asking him to be a fourth quarter comeback, star. He wants him just to take care of business, keep him in the game, not throw picks, manage the game, not turn it over, and be a leader, right?
Yes. You don't have to win games. You just can't lose them.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, I think we're all waiting to see what Mertz has got. Shane Matthews. I got Brady Ackerman on my mind today. Why are you doing this to me, Brady? Shane Matthews said that he feels confident that the guy will be a really good quarterback. I trust Shane's judgments on quarterbacks, And,
I mean, he knows better than he does.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that means exactly, except the fact. All right, a couple other things before we get our buddy Rob Browne in here. He's going to tell us what was said today up in Kentucky, Tennessee. Why do I have my brain is addled today, Addie? I need your help. All right, Zach Goodall said he asked a question about. Let's see. Sorry. Rob Browne had a good question. Rob Browne had a very good question to Billy. We're going to talk to him. Let's go get him right now and ask him about that question. Our buddy up there in Memphis from Sideline, Mr. Rob Browne. Say hello to Allie. Rob.
Hey, Allie, how you doing? That buddy?
Good, Rob. How are you?
Good. Had fun today. Billy Napier did a great job, and got to talk to some of the Florida players. Big day, man. It's unfortunately over tomorrow. It goes by way too fast.
We were talking about some of the numbers that Billy threw out there, and there was nothing he said that was earth-shattering. They learned a few things. One of the best ones was that he's picked up 10,000 snaps in the transfer portal. That's kind of an amazing stat, Rob and Allie, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's smart, I think, in his opinion. So, all right, so we're going to do this. Here's a guy who asked this question today for Kingsley Algonquin, okay? Let's see if we know who he is. Hold on, please.
A lot of fans out there, college football fans, are saying the game is ruined with NIL and all. And I mean, everybody wants to make money and all, but how many of your teammates, and you mentioned that about Rashada and all, would be there with or without it and all, and thinking about, you work your ass off, graduate, you come back, the connections, the relationships, what are those worth? But, you got to love the game of football more than anything.
Yeah, so actually kind of played a part in me not going anywhere, even though that thought never really crossed my mind to leave UF.
Yeah.
But if I left for X amount of money more or less, however it may have gone, what is that really doing for me? Like, I've already put in this work for 4 years at the University of Florida, and now if I leave, how am I'm leaving off on that note. Like, but I think that's another thing I have a problem with, like, every day kind of seeing is, like, I kind of question some of the guys, not necessarily the guys on my team, but I just question, like, are you really a Gator? Like, are you really here because you want to be a Gator? Or are you here because they gave you this much money? And like me, I committed here, and NIL wasn't even a thing. The transfer portal wasn't even a thing when I got to college. So, you know, I think NIL definitely, there's obviously some guys across the country who might be going to schools because of the amount of money they can get. But, I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I personally don't think that's the right reason to go to a school, especially when everybody's paying NIL. Like, it's a common thing across all schools. So I think guys committing to schools because of money is kind of ridiculous, in my opinion. But
I think I recognize that accent. That was Rob Browne asking Kingsley Gonquin. What do you think of that quote, that comment by Gonquin, Allie? What was your feeling about that?
Painted on the locker room wall. That is the kind of thing that you want your players that commit to your program to say. NIL should be a secondary or third or fourth reason for going to a university. Where are you going to get a great degree? Where are you going to get developed? Where are you going to have opportunities when you are finished with your playing days? And then NIL, taking a large sum of money at the beginning, but not getting developed and not getting that degree. And then you're going to spend that money while you're in college because you're also not, getting coached up on how to invest it or save it or whatever else, is not going to help you at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, Rob and I do his show every week on Saturdays. I know his heart. That is the guy who just stole Rob Brown's heart right there.
I was so impressed with him. I mean, because in my 32-year wealth management advisory career, never once have we had a family say we're going to give out money to an 18, a 19, or a 20-year-old. Florida, I told him off, after we got through, I said, man, you're going to get that degree from Florida. That's going to open up doors that people would only dream of. You stick it out, you grind it out. I said, I'm proud of you. And he looked at me and he said, thank you, sir. What a good, that's a great representative. And Allie, you know this. Your husband, your brother, your dad, your grandfather, you got to, as Ivan Menzel said, you got to love the laundry. Like Buddy says, who owns college football? The fans. He can come back, be able to, no matter what happens, he finished what he started.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was nice. Now, I talked earlier about how some of the hype and some of the things that go on in the media days are kind of like useless and old and cliche. But that's the kind of pearl right there that's worth making the trip for. When you can talk to a young man like that, not just because he says something we agreed with, he eloquently said it, he believed it, and it's a value. And I think what we're all crying out for, Allie and Robbie, are values to be stated. For someone to step up and say, I heard someone else say, I forgot who it was, a player said, they've got to do something. Oh, it's quarterback from Mississippi State. So they're going to have to do something soon with this whole thing, with the NIL money and so on. So maybe the kids got it figured out. Maybe we're the ones who got it all screwed up, right?
At least
I
the
think
kids
you're
are there, right?
Let's see. All right. So the other thing I want to ask you about, Rob, and I won't keep you long tonight because I know you had a long day. Thank you for doing this for us. You've been great.
I'm glad. And thank you for being on my show, and Allie too. I got a lot of Gators, Ben Troop, Franz Beard, and all of y'all. And
my whole show, you got
Gator
my whole show on your show, for crying out loud. All my stars.
I love it. Your whole show on my show. The show of shows.
I saw this thing that said send stars. I sent all my stars to you, man. I don't have any left. What the heck? But it's good stuff. And I love doing the show with you, too. You had a good question for Billy. You've done something I haven't done this year. You've asked a question of Billy Napier, for crying out loud.
Yeah, he's you can't help but like him. And Jack Patterson from Channel 3 over in Columbus said, your brother coaches over in LaGrange, Georgia, which is 45 minutes from Auburn. He's just got something about him that you like, because he seems like just one of you and one of the fans. And I asked him a question. I said, you've coached with Dabo Swinney, you've coached with Nick Saban. I said, what that you've learned from them do you still use, and what have you learned from them that's obsolete now and you've had to change? And he talked about that. And he's always adapting, and he's a planner. But you know what? At the end of the day, he has never forgotten where he came from. He genuinely loves being at Florida.
Yeah, I mean, look, all those things are good, and I'm a big fan. He's just got to win. He's got to win, and that's what we're all hoping is going to. Because you like to see good guys win, but it doesn't always work out that way in this cruel game. It's well, he kind of flew under the radar, Alec, like he sort of wanted to in a way. You know, he got his message out and said it, and didn't have any tasks, didn't have any ugly hot takes, whatever. Rob, final question for you. What were the things that were said during the week that you took away we know about what Kirby said, we know about what Saban said, or let's recap the 2 or 3 things you'll take away from SEC Media Days.
I guess I'd say Zach Arnett at Mississippi State talking about how much he loves it, what he learned from Mike Leach and what he's learned along the way. And he's so grateful of what that job has done. I like to hear a coach that's grateful for what they have, not one that's just getting a check and doesn't care about being there. I've experienced that firsthand with a coach on the Plains recently. But anyway, that's one thing. Another thing is Billy Napier. You cannot help but want to see this guy succeed. You think about how he grew up, his dad coaching from a wheelchair. And I wanted to ask him this question. You know, when some of these kids in the BMW culture bitch, moan, and whine, complain about practice is too tough or life is too tough, you might want to remind them, hey, man, my dad coached from a wheelchair. And Billy talked about growing up the son of a coach, getting in the back of a pickup truck, going to pick up players, going and picking up stuff on the football field and being a part of it, and the hopes and dreams and the ups and the downs. He's ready for it. He loves it. And he embraces it. And the other one was Nick Saban and Sam Pittman, both at the end of their things going, let me say this before I go. I want to thank all of the media, all of the press.
Wait, don't say media,
for being here.
I got to think about that now. It's not the media box, it's the press box. Okay,
it's the press box. And he said, I want to thank all of the press corps for being here because of all the excitement and the interest that you generate, and you tell these stories, and thank you for being here. And the other one is talking to Herb Vincent from the SEC office, director of communications, and some of the people, and just saying, thank you for doing this. Over 1,200 people here this year, and just watching these people that are at the top of the profession give back and help people that are coming up. I think that's been the biggest takeaway, and just the camaraderie of this SEC family. It's just solid. It gets better every year.
Yeah, but Rob, here's the thing: we're all gonna go. We're gonna take Allen. We're all gonna go to Dallas next year. But here's the warning signal. I'm firing it across. I've already fired this week. I told you last week. Watch for this. You cannot trust those Texans or even Oklahomans. They will hijack the league, and pretty soon they'll treat it like they're original members of the Southwest Conference, and we can join their conference. You watch what I'm telling you. I know about those Texans. They'll be all over every talk show talking smack. And there are the first call Powell Feinbaum got yesterday was from a guy in Tulsa who said he wanted Paul to know that Oklahoma was kicking Texas ass in recruiting. Who cares? Not even the SEC yet. A little early for that, you know. So I'm just going to say that right now. This ain't the Southwest Conference. It's the Southeast Conference, okay? Put your own notes.
Yeah.
All
yeah,
right,
I'm with you. Yeah, I remember the time that Beverly Hillbillies, when Uncle Jed was running for mayor of Beverly Hills, and Jethro had a big picture of himself, and it said, Jethro Bodine says, vote for Jed Clampett in small print. Let's hope next year the Omni's not lit up with a giant longhorn in orange and white. Texas welcomes the SEC. It ain't going to happen. Buddy has put them on notice. The first shot over the bow has been fired.
Rob, great stuff out there. Appreciate it, man. Good job.
Right.
Maybe we'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll see. Wouldn't be the same if we didn't talk to you. So,
hey, anything you need, I will do it. Okay, you helped me tremendously.
All right, my man. Thank you. In regards to all your
You bet.
folks, and I'll talk to you on the show on Saturday.
All right.
Let's stand
Take
by.
care.
We're
Bye,
about
Alan.
to see ya. We're about to reunite the sweet and sour hour here, I think, right now, and see my man David Moulton, who's been out and about on vacation. quick shout out from our sponsor. Then David Moulton comes to us from the Orange and Blue Room. Allie, you can hang around, right, for a minute?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, all right, stand by. I'm going to do this little bit ditty here and right back with David Moulton. You guys have done so well in your business, but take me inside the organization and tell me, what's it like when dad and son kind of get in there and don't agree on things?
Well, there's two dynamics going on, right? It's lawyer to lawyer and father to son. So sometimes, when the father and son stuff goes on, you have to take a break for a minute. You just say,
yeah. Take a beat. Yeah.
I'm gonna go get some coffee. I'll be right back.
That's better than shouting. Shouting doesn't work. No, for sure. Well, being in my business, I have my son Brendan also worked with me. And it's been a test for both of us. I pity him. It's like I pity Carrie having to work for you. But bottom line is, it's an honor. Really.
I know your son, and he's a great kid. Yeah. And we're both very blessed to have our kids work with us. And look, it's a blessing in most regards. Sometimes it's challenging. However, there's a level of trust that you have with family that you can't replace with anybody else.
Now, to the Orange and Blue, we're welcoming back as fans have been clamoring for him. Where has he been? The other half of the Sweet and Sour Hour, David Moulton. Hello, David. Welcome back, buddy.
Hi, buddy. Hi, Allie. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Doing fine, thanks. Are you okay with this sweet and sour billing here? Okay, we need to trademark it, profit off this in some way, don't you think? I mean, you got 4 mouths to feed, for goodness sakes. I mean, come on, buddy, help her out.
5 mouths. She got 5 mouths. Yeah.
And some days I'll be sweet. It might depend on the Wednesday.
Yeah, it could be her. She could be sour some days. That's right.
Yep.
Not really. Welcome back, David. We missed you. How was your vacay or whatever you had?
Well, it wasn't vacay, actually. I had to go for some cancer screening. So
that's not fun.
Knock on wood. Things are they're okay.
Okay,
they're about a C+.
Well, that's good to know. I have to go through this myself. I know they're not fun to always worry about. But all right, so David, I know you didn't particularly watch the SEC today and the media days, or maybe you did. I won't say that you didn't.
No, actually, I've been paying pretty close attention the last 3 days. I think that interest in the event, if for no other reason, because it was in Nashville. Also, I think we're far enough removed from the pandemic. Georgia with back-to-back titles, somebody not Alabama being king of the hill, I think also adds a little spice to the room. Oklahoma, Texas on the horizon, the 12-team playoff on the horizon. I mean, tough not to be excited if you're the SEC and a whole lot of teams in it.
Or almost the SEC, which the people from Texas and Oklahoma are jumping the gun here a little early, but want to be a part of the party. But anyway, yeah, you're right. And we talked about what Billy said. I mean, what can you say anymore? One of these things is kind of they perfected the art of saying nothing while moving their mouths. That's okay. It comes with the territory. They're going to give you their message. They're going to coach players, whatever. I think there were 2 things that Billy said. I'm not a big numbers guy, as you know, but the 2 numbers that stuck out to me, and I'll get Allie to comment on this too. He said 93% of his roster was there in January. That's a pretty amazing number given the transfer portal. And he also said in the transfer portal he got 10,000 snaps. Wow. Allie?
I mean, I think that we talked, already on this show about the fact that Napier does a really good job evaluating talent. He brought in guys last season who we were all skeptical of, who ended up being Florida's best players. So I think when you think about the guys that he brought into the transfer portal, for this season, he was very selective about who he picked. He did a lot of homework on it. So I think that the odds are they pan out. And then on the flip side of that, the 93% of the roster that was here in January, that bodes well. Florida had a lot of turnover the last couple of years. So now it seems like the roster is kind of settled. And truly, at this point, I'd have to look at what the statistics are, but it's got to be at least 80% Napier guys at this point. There was kind of a mass exodus at more than one point since he became the head coach. And so now these are his players, and he's going to get to live and die by his roster. But I'm kind of excited to see that because, like I said, he is an incredible evaluator of talent.
Buddy, I think he's doing a terrific job. And I know Allie has documented it and others as well. I just hope that Gator Nation is willing to accept what a mess he inherited. It was worse than what most of us thought.
Yeah,
and when
we're
you
finding out that, yeah, you're right.
Right. And so you cannot, even in this day and age with the portal and then what have you, you cannot replace that kind of damage to a roster as quickly as I think Gator Nation wants it repaired. Then you throw in a very challenging schedule, again, even more challenging next year. And, Allie, I sense your enthusiasm, your optimism. I really wish they had a better quarterback. I do. I'm sorry to be so down on this kid in that position, and I know that the SEC quarterback position is very much in transition this year. I just think that the first-time quarterbacks in the SEC at a lot of the other schools are either much more highly regarded or just better. I mean, I really believe that the Gators are bottom third, if not bottom quarter of the league at that position right now. That's tough to coach around and play around, quite frankly, if you're not going to get at that position what just about every one of your opponents is going to get.
Well,
but I think,
go ahead, Allie.
No, I was going to say, I don't think that Graham Mertz is going to be all world. I don't think he's going to be all SEC, but I also don't think that he has to be. But when you look at, like you said, the quarterbacks in transition in the league, we've gotten all these lists that have come out in the last week ranking quarterbacks, and the majority of them have him at 14th, which I also think is probably not going to be where he is. If nothing else, that he started for 3 years in the Big Ten. The fact that he has real game experience is going to give him an advantage over some of these guys.
32 games.
It was 3 full seasons, right?
Right.
Yeah.
32
So,
games.
I mean, that says something to me. I don't think he's going to be great. I just don't think he has to be. I think if he can try and play mistake-free football, they do have a solid offensive line, potentially the best running back duo in the SEC. They have Pearsall. They have young freshman weapons. I just think he has to be serviceable.
And I do think they will be better coached on defense schematically. And I do think that they'll play faster and better with it being year 2 in the same systems. So I think they'll be improved. I do. I think the schedule is every bit as challenging. And I think next year's schedule is going to be even more challenging. So whatever improvement the Gators have, I think the schedule is, going to be a bit daunting. I keep saying 2025 is the breakthrough year, and I know that's year 4, and that's a long time to wait. I just think when you throw in the fact that where they were starting from a roster construction standpoint, the fact that really his first 2 years, he's not going to have really good quarterback play. And quite frankly, he may be breaking in a freshman in 2024 also. He may not get the quarterback play he's looking for till 2025. We're going to eliminate the divisions, which I think is going to hurt Florida initially, because I think that the Gators are rebuilding that roster where maybe they would have been second in their division only to Georgia potentially. But now that we're going to eliminate the division, it could make their road even harder. So I just hope that everybody is willing to see, the forest through the trees. That's all I'm hoping for.
You aren't going to make progress firing your coach every 3 years.
Absolutely.
So
and he's doing, and Allie,
I
think
he's
doing,
go with him.
Even if they go 6-6 this year, which I know people will be very unhappy with, I think he's doing it the right way. I really do. And that's important.
But you talk about building your foundations out of cement or building it out of wood. And I think he's building the cement foundation. I think we just need to give him time to finish the whole house. But, we talk about 3 years and firing a coach, and we've done that repeatedly. And at some point, it devalues the job. I don't know how many times Florida can continue to attract a good, strong coach if he knows no matter what, he gets 3 years or he's out.
If you think about it, Muschamp's one terrific year was with Urban's players. All right. McElwain won with Muschamp's players. Dan won with McElwain's players.
Urban won with his players, and so on.
Well, but then he won with his players.
But the first year
he did. In 06, he won with Zook's players, but 08, 09 were his players. And I hope that Gator Nation realizes we got to give Napier time for him to win with his guys. That's what you need in a program.
Yeah.
All right, here's why I'm not really optimistic about this season. I'm stuck somewhere between 6 and 7 wins. I haven't decided where yet. I want to see more. I would say there are
that's an over though, buddy.
I know
okay,
it's
that's
an
over.
And I am going over. If I had to pick a number, I'd say 6.5 or whatever. But the thing is, here's a couple of things why. If you want some hope, here's what I can offer. First of all, I value Shane Matthews' evaluation of quarterbacks. He has seen Mertz, seen film on Mertz, and likes him, and says he can play. Says he will be a really good quarterback. Shane's got him at over 8 wins. That's might be a little excessive for me, but Shane's not giving him those kind of things. But you got too. So that's one. I could go on. Here's the thing I talked to Urban Meyer about today. I was having a conversation. It might be pure genius. I don't think it's by accident. Where has Billy been building his offense? Offensive line, right? Running back, right? Got some new young wide receivers and not being mistake prone and turning the ball over and what have you. And he wants to run the football. No mystery there, right? So the defense has got to be better. I mean, they might get off the field on third down once in a while, which they haven't done now in about 12 years. So let's think about it. How has the game changed? How has the game changed? We now have a running clock. Think about it. The team that controls the football controls the game. If he's right and he can run the football and keep the football, advantage Billy. So that's one thing I don't think people talked about. I think this guy's a lot smarter than people think he is. He likes it under the radar right now, and he's not saying much. He didn't say much today on purpose, and we'll see. Now, am I predicting he's going to go out and win the SEC? No, he might in 2 or 3 years. I think he's on track. We can see progress here. And one of the things he said today that stuck out with me the most, what he said about being in the second year, he said, my list of to-dos have gone way down. Look at what he had to do last year. All the things, and moving his family, getting the coaches. He says he's gone way down. That's key. So those are some things I think you guys can tear me apart if you want to. I'm not trying to blow sunshine around here, except to say there is that hope. David, go ahead. Now you want to repeat. Go ahead, David. Go ahead.
No, I don't. Actually,
David,
I want to talk to Allie in that I think, first off, everything you talked about with Napier and how he's building the team, I think that's just his DNA. He was going to do it that way anyway. Yeah. But Allie, I was talking with somebody the other day, and maybe we're grasping for straws here, but I think, you know how Alabama got the 4 first-round draft picks at receiver and spread everything out, and Georgia countered that by just being bigger and more physical than everybody else and winning back-to-back national titles. And if you listen to Nick closely, Nick now wants to play the way he used to play, and he wants to play more the way Georgia's playing. And if you listen to Napier closely, Allie, I hear a guy that's basically saying, we're going to fight Georgia fire with fire. I'm recruiting 330 across the line. I'm recruiting men on the defensive line. Okay, and there is no way to slay those guys except to line up in the trenches and go to war with them.
I mean, if you're 6'6" on our offensive line currently, or, with the guys that have coming in this 2024 class, you're short. He wants 6'8", 300 plus pounds. That is what he is looking for in that offensive line. And that's what Alabama started winning with. If you look back at their previous teams, that's what they were. They really have, I guess, in the last, few years gotten a little cute with their offense. It's been a little bit more high powered. But that's not, they out-muscled you before. They just physically dominated you. And I do think that that's currently what Georgia does. And that's exactly what he's doing, is taking a play out of both of their book, building it on the line. That's where his focus is, because he thinks that's where he can win. And we do have an incredible running back duo. Honestly, we have 3 running backs that are really good. Cam Carroll, I think, is going to contribute this year as well. So that plays to our strengths if that offensive line is good. And I talked to Shannon Snell multiple times, and Snell has been out there at practice, and he said he thinks that the offensive line is actually much deeper than last year. And if it stays healthy, that will make it a much better offensive line, which is crazy when you think about losing Torrance.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Do we think the line, though, will be ready for prime time? They've got some challenges in September. I mean, at Utah week 1, you take a look at the all Pac-12 list. Utah at the line of scrimmage is all over the Pac-12 on both sides of the ball. We saw last year, Utah's 23 to 25-year-old men on both lines of scrimmage. So do we think that line will be ready in September? Because they got some challenging games in September.
So I do think the very beginning of this season kind of dictates how the rest goes. The first 6 games of our schedule are absolutely easier than the second half of the schedule. If they beat Utah, I think they could beat Tennessee. And I think that has a lot to do with the confidence that they get from beating Utah. I will say, I think that our line is going to surprise us. When I listen to guys that go out there to practice, that watch, that have expertise in the position, and they're excited about what we're doing on the line. I mean, and obviously injuries can change this, and we are about to go into camp, and who knows what will happen there with that. But I do think this line will be ready. I don't think that's what we need to be concerned about on offense.
Help me out with this a little bit. I heard these guys' names mentioned today. I don't have the roster, but the 2 new defensive linemen they've got. One guy's from Memphis. I forget where the other guy's from. And Derek Mason, who was a former coach, now with ESPN, said offhandedly today, those 2 guys they picked up are really good players. And I had not heard an evaluation like that of these guys. So those are a couple of holes to plug. Look, they're thin. They like I say, don't have a ton of talent. I think at least it's going to be an interesting season. It's not going to be one of those, let's mail it in, ho-hum, skip the bowl game and go home. It's going to be interesting. And you can see Billy, by the way. You can see he was very anxious about coaching his team in a good way. By the way, here's a picture, if I can get it. I want to show you. This is what David's new look's going to be right here. Okay, see that right there?
Right.
Who is it, Allie?
Yep.
It's Ricky Pearsall, isn't it?
Right, a.k.a. John Wick, right? That's what that's the John Wick look, and I've never watched the movies, but I guess he's a hitman. But that's the clean look, and that's Ricky Pearsall. I saw him interviewed today. I'd never seen Ricky. I've been in a group press conference, saw a one-on-one today. He's styling, and gosh, he's going to return punch. So
if you're wearing shades indoors, you are styling. There's no doubt about that.
Well, David, you wear those. I see your show all the time. You're wearing shades.
Not at all, although the lights in here are a little brighter than I'd like them. I actually think the Tennessee game is very... When's the last time the Vols won in the Swamp?
It's a winnable game.
Was it 03?
Probably.
Was it Zook? Zook, I think, lost to him once. I mean, I'm wondering if 03 is the last...
But that was up there, I thought. The Dallas Baker slap.
Right, but I meant when's the last time Tennessee came to Gainesville and won? I think it's been 20 years. And Tennessee lost a lot. They lost their top 2 receivers. They lost a first-round draft pick at tackle. They lost a second-team All-SEC quarterback. I mean, Tennessee's got some dudes to replace here. That's a win. That's the game that I think, Allie, like if they beat Utah, I'll be speechless. But I think they can get Tennessee.
But I think I just think if they, well, first of all, if they can win both of those, then they're hitting the over in terms of the wins on the season being 5.5. But you've got to get the winnable games because there are a lot of tough games. And you think about one of your listeners commented on this a few minutes ago, but there were so many games that Florida could have won last year that really just came down to a couple of plays. And what they need this year is to win a couple of those. Win the game.
What was it, 5? Was it 4 plays by 9 points or something like that? I saw that, yeah.
You win a couple of those and you have a much better outlook. I do think 7 or 8 is the high end of achievable, but I think it's achievable. I think anything past that would be, a minor miracle. But I think 7 or 8 is completely possible. You just have to win those coin flip games. And honestly, Florida didn't really win many. I guess you could consider the USF game a coin flip game last year, and we came up on the positive side of that.
And Utah. Okay. I mean, when you think about it, Utah's throwing the ball in the end zone to win it. So,
But think about Vandy. There's just so many games that they also didn't. And if you win more of those than you lose, then your record's okay.
They flip that. Yeah.
He doesn't have to win 9 games. He just needs to show some progress. So win 7. And I think you've moved in the right direction. You have something to build on. Your seat is not hot. I just think there's got to be some forward progress. Show some willingness to adapt in your play calling. Show an improvement in special teams. Show an improvement on third down. There's just so many areas outside of the win-loss column that if Florida shows progress on, I think it buys them some of the patience.
All right, guys. All right, sweet and sour. Let's take this on for a couple of minutes. Allie, I noticed you tackled the subject this past week. Don't forget her podcast on how many times a week? 2 or 3 at least. When something happens, Allie's on the air on YouTube, so check it out. And David, of course, you can hear her 5 days a week. Way too early for me, but in the morning. And he and Miller are together again. How many years, David, you and Miller have been together?
17 years.
Think it'll last?
Yep. It's my other marriage. My wife is okay with me. Having a mistress named Mark Miller.
Good show. Enjoyed it. You used to listen to it down in Punta Gorda when I was down there. It was the afternoon then. And of course now you're on in Jacksonville, and you're on in Gainesville actually, and you're on in Lake City, Live Oak, and all points north there. So good with that. All right. The stadium changes. This is going to be an ongoing story. Mm-hmm. And Allie, you mentioned this the other day, because I don't know if you were on with me with Scott Carter or not.
Yeah.
There are so many people who are concerned about this stadium. And I'll tell you one thing. There's so much change going on right now in college football. The word change gets scary for a lot of people who say, what else are going to change? This is the last. Someone said today, well, remember the days we used to have 4 teams in the playoff and had divisions in the SEC? Yeah, that's gone now. So the point being that the stadium changes. When you start messing around with iconic structures, it's really sensitive. And I'm sure they're going to do a good job of eventually doing it, but it's not off the table yet that they could move the stadium. They could move the swamp, and I heard it from someone right there in Gainesville, and that would be a disaster.
So I heard last September from a pretty reliable source that they were considering 3 options. One was renovating the swamp as is. 2 was tearing it down and rebuilding it where it stands. Or 3 is moving it either to the golf course or out near the baseball field. And it is my understanding that they think renovating the swamp is what it will be, and that's where that $400 million price tag came from. I was told if they move it, it's going to be much higher than $400 million. So maybe we will, that doesn't mean that's not still on the table, but I think it would be a larger number for that to happen. And that is because at the root of all of this is the fact that there are structural issues with the swamp that they have to address. Comfort aside, stadium size aside, all of that. So I think that this is born out of necessity. But the idea of moving it is insane to me. I think that that's what's the heart of campus. There is nothing like Saturday night in the swamp. And I can't imagine that stadium being anywhere else.
What'd you call it, Allie? sweating with 90,000 of your closest friends.
Yes.
Is that what you said? Yeah.
That's exactly what you do on a Saturday night in the swamp. And I think there's lots of us who wouldn't have it any other way. And, I think there's a way to modernize it, add the things that, all the other stadiums around the country are doing, but you can leave the integrity of what the swamp is, what it means to play a game in there. You listen to coaches, even at SEC Media Days, talk about playing in the swamp for the first time. Brian Kelly talked about what it's like playing Florida, playing Florida and what those fans are like. And it is our 12th man. So the concept of taking that away is insane to me. And I think short-sighted, honestly.
David, I don't want to be an alarmist, but you get what I'm saying here. Just be careful. Go ahead, give me your take on this. I think
the only other
right, but
the only other outdoor stadium that to me is as loud or possibly slightly louder is where the Seahawks play. And as somebody who grew up rooting for teams, even though I'm a Mets fan, they built a new Yankee Stadium catty corner to the old one with the same dimensions. It's not close to the same stadium. It's not. Not only does it look differently, it sounds completely different. Completely different. And that, to me, Allie, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. To me, what makes the swamp, for as great as Spurrier and Urban's teams were, what makes the swamp is the sound, is the feel inside that stadium. And I don't think, even if you were to literally take the walls and move them to the golf course and measure it out and say, okay, they all go here, it would not feel and sound the same. It never does. I mean, they built a giant stadium that was identical to the old one across the parking lot from the old one. It's a completely different feel. The wind is entirely different, even though it was 300 yards away. So to me, unless literally the cracks in the foundation are such, they have to build a new one. They just, and let's be honest, Allie, if it comes in at $1 billion, they're going to find the money. I mean, Gator Nation's going to pay to redo the swamp. And if it's $1 billion, it's $1 billion.
In a time where NIL is determining championships, does it make sense to spend $1 billion to move the stadium and ruin the field versus $400,000, and use the money for other things like that? It doesn't even seem like the smart investment, but.
Well, and that's what Loxley at Maryland said. Loxley at Maryland said, we've all made a mistake in the last 10 years investing in facilities, because right now, if you pay a kid $5,000 more, he'll go play in a dump for $5,000 more than he will the Taj Mahal.
That's
not according to Kingsley Egungun tonight. We heard from him. He wouldn't do it.
Well,
but you're right, David.
In this, right. We appreciate those rare ones.
Yeah. Let me throw this at you. And final question tonight. As one who made their living like you, David, traveling venues all over the country, if not part of the world, and attending sporting events, there's certain things that cannot be replicated. I'm not saying this is necessarily true of the swamp, but I've seen there was nothing will ever replicate the sound of a Tiger Woods birdie or eagle in Augusta National. And the echoes down those swales. It is amazing. In the old days, you used to say, well, that's a Jack Nicklaus holler. He just birdied. You could tell from the sound what happened on the empathy. And this is something that we kid about the 90,000 people and sweating with them and all that sort of stuff. But it is, when you stop and think about how epic this place is, this is one of the great venues of sport, not just the football, in my opinion. Don't screw with it, please.
I don't, unless, Allie, engineering-wise, literally, you get engineers to walk up to a microphone and go, ladies and gentlemen, that building is not safe to be in ever again. Unless they say something like that.
That might be coming.
Well, if it is, then, hey, listen, the building's 85 years old. I mean, that could very well be the truth.
I don't care about the building. I care about the site. As long as they leave it on that site.
Yeah. I mean, I think they have a lot of issues to overcome in renovating the current stadium, not the least of which being the fact that it's attached to a building that's considered a historical building. And so therefore they can't do a whole lot to it. They can widen the seats, they can widen the aisles, but they can't add luxury boxes on the other side. So I think that that's a factor in all of this. And I know that there are foundation issues. I don't know if they're going to condemn it tomorrow. I mean, obviously that would change things, but I'm all in favor of a 50-year Band-Aid and let's kick it down the road and, address it again at that point. But, it is one of the best football venues. We've been in larger stadiums. You guys have been to Tuscaloosa. It's larger. It's not louder. We've been to Knoxville. It's larger. It's pretty loud, but it's not louder. I think Death Valley is the only place that I've been to that, in my opinion, rivals the Swamp. I haven't been to a home Seahawks game, so I don't have that comparison. But LSU at night, Baton Rouge, hard atmosphere to beat. I put that right up there with the Swamp. But been to a lot of stadiums, and even ones that are bigger, and it's the unique shape of the Swamp, the location that it is, the way that it's oriented. All of that contributes to the sound factor that is just hard to beat in college football.
Ali, we'll close it with David, you can comment on that if you like, but close it with a trivia question. Go ahead.
But to me, it's like when the Canes ditched the Orange Bowl. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that they are not the same program. I don't. The Orange Bowl had mystique. Jeter once said when they came back and beat the Red Sox in Game 7 in the 2003 LCS, in the 8th inning, a teammate was next to him and he goes, "Oh my goodness, we're going to lose." And Jeter just said, "No, we're not." And the guy said, "Why?" And he said, "Because the ghosts haven't come out yet." Okay. And there are certain stadiums in which, quite frankly, once the home team puts a representative team on the field, you think this place has mystique. No. And the Swamp is one of those places.
Exactly right. That's what I've been trying to say. You're exactly right.
Last year, we literally just experienced that. Florida should have lost that game, and that crowd won that game.
Yeah.
All right, I do think, and I know you got to wrap it up, but Brian Kelly played a night
I've got
game.
all night. Go ahead.
In 2019, Brian Kelly played a night game in Athens. Notre Dame finished the home and home. 2019, they went to Georgia. Prime time. We did it on CBS. And that was as great an atmosphere that Georgia's had in the 18 years that I've been covering the SEC. And Brian Kelly, without question, said the night game in Florida last year was the wildest atmosphere that he's ever coached in. Yep. And think about it, that was a 6-6 Florida team.
Yeah, right.
God forbid he ever comes to the Swamp and it's a 10-win team.
Right.
Right. Anything on the line, it's even crazier. Yeah.
But the students are sold out again, Ali. I know you should comment on that today. 30 straight year. Now, you said get there on time for the games, right?
Yeah, Alabama, I wish we'd switch to what they do for their students for tickets. If you're not checked in by the end of the first quarter, you lose your tickets for the rest of the season. And that's in any single game. You'll lose them for the rest of the season. And I think that that's something that we could look for. They talk about maybe cutting down on the number of seats in the Swamp, and part of that's to add luxury boxes and this and that. And let's hold our students accountable. We don't need empty seats there. Show up, or give your ticket to someone else so someone else can show up, or don't claim them.
She's tough, man. Wow.
Nick has intimidated those students to the point now where they're lined up an hour plus before the game. They're in the stadium before the band. Okay, they are the students, and they're standing at attention. Okay, for when Nick first comes out of the tunnel. I mean, he has intimidated them to the point where they're thinking they're going to get expelled if they're not there early.
When I went to watch my brother play, there was an Alabama kid who had participated in some libations prior to the game who was passed out of the tailgate, and his college roommate is looking through his wallet for his student ID so he can stand it in the stadium so the kid didn't lose his seats. And I mean, maybe that's what we need to do.
Yeah. Remember, Billy Donovan had like a tent city out there. You had to get in line for it.
I did that times.
Yeah. It sounds like something you do, Ali.
It absolutely is.
By the way, here's a trivia question for you. When your grandfather, the great Scotty Peek, played at Florida Field, what was the seating capacity?
Was it like 12,000 or something?
No.
What was it? I have no idea.
Well, I know it was under 40. I can tell you that. Because when I was in school, it was 42. George Solomon reminded me the other day. He was now the retired sports editor of the Washington Post. He said, well, it looks a lot bigger than 42,000 that we had. So we'll look that up next time on the next edition of Sweet and Sour Hour. Wow. I think we're stuck with that, guys. I don't know. I like it. Yeah. It's always fun doing it with you guys. So, Alec, thanks for being here the whole hour. I know welcome. It's been very, very long night for you. David, good to see you back. Good stuff as always, David. Love doing this show with you guys. Let's do it again next Wednesday night, and I'll double your pay. How's that sound?
Sounds like a plan.
Allie, have a good week, buddy. Call anytime.
Thank you, David, very much. Appreciate it. All right, Allie. Talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to our sponsors. Earlier we talked about Meldon Law, our good friends there. Also Titan MRI Hotline. And our good friends at Renstar Medical Research. I can't say enough about them. I usually save it till last because I want to spend a little time telling you about these people. Loyalty is a remarkable thing today in the marketplace. Having friends and people who stick by something and stick by you and have your back is a beautiful thing. Aside from that, Renstar Medical Research is a fine company which does a lot of good things in our community to support this community and the schools. Happens that their former Gator players are associated there. Scott Brantley, married to Mary Brantley, one of the owners, and Joe Sorrentino, the father of Joey Sorrentino, now a dentist, former Gator under Urban Meyer. So that's the personal side. The professional side is they have a very, very outstanding, high-quality, patient-centered clinical research facility. What does that mean? It means Renstar can do testing down there of cutting-edge clinical research trials in things that matter to us, like Alzheimer's and dementia, psoriasis, osteoarthritis, migraines, fibromyalgia, the many diseases that affect us in our community. They also allow you an opportunity to take part in those clinical research trials. If you want to go on and find out if you qualify, you can go to renstar.net and look it up and see if you can qualify. In some cases, time and travel, you get paid compensation for. So their clinical research goes to prominent pharmaceutical and biomedical companies throughout the medical industry. Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Great show tonight, folks. Enjoyed it very much. Great to have people like that. Thanks to Rob Browne bringing news to us from up in Tennessee, not Kentucky, buddy. Last time I looked, Nashville's not Kentucky. And good report there. Also, again, thanks to Allie and thanks to David. Have a good night, folks. I'm Buddy Martin. See you tomorrow night. Orange and Blue Blood Thursday with Ben Troop in the game. Don't miss it. We'll be back then.